This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
As well, your loved ones are able to receive immediate tax-free support from an individual who has been in the game for over 60 years, 6 decades in the game.
Yep.
What else are you looking for? Because remember, when you talk about legacy and you leaving the world, it is not a question of if, it is when.
Absolutely.
But the second question is, what will you have done with the services or the resources that the one who's called you God gave you?
Absolutely. So when I need to get in touch with somebody, I send a message with my name and town, with town life and town to 21778.
Yes.
Or I call on WhatsApp or send a message to 0705 100 100.
You're a good student.
Thank you very much.
You're a good
please.
student.
Give me my A's, I'll take them. All right. So we're getting into the conversation this morning about school unrest. Reportedly, officially, 12 schools have been closed so far. We don't know what Thursday is going to hold. What is behind the tension? Boaz Waroko is the policy advisor for the Elimu Bora working group and joins us in the hot seat of the Situation Room this morning. Boaz, good morning.
Good morning, Du, and good morning, Dennis.
Good morning. Good morning.
Happy to be here.
Karibu sana.
I hope things will go on well.
It would be our hope that we would have this discussion under better circumstances, but we are met with what we are met with, and we're going to have to talk about it and at least bring some of these issues to the fore. But before we do that, Dennis is in Ghana this week. We'd love to hear your interpretation of the project.
The proverb today we get from Ghana is the rain wets the leopard but never washes off its spots. How would you interpret it?
The rain wets the leopard, but never washes off its spots.
Yes.
I would take that to mean, the spots are character and the nature of the leopard. And the rain basically is just, it's a natural thing just to clean, wash off dust and not necessarily to change the character. Based on what we are witnessing here, is a situation where, unfortunately, we are having problem after the problem, and this thing did not even make people to change their behavior.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that is where we are.
Yeah.
Right.
Unfortunately, that's where we are. Sorry. And this phone can just be
Somewhere over there.
Yes, it is on mute. Yes, thank you. So, basically, that's what I would put across. But let me tell you, it is not a nice morning because we are still mourning the loss of 16 beautiful girls. 2 years after we lost 21 beautiful young boys. And it appears that the pattern is repeating itself and nobody cares. First, condolences to the families that lost these young ones. And to the teachers, I know they are really under pressure because there are many things happening. We just wish them well. We wish that the situation could be contained. But whatever the circumstances, we should stop these preventable deaths.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
It's interesting that that's the adjective that you use, that these deaths are preventable, because a girl in the school a couple of days ago said very publicly that most of the girls who died in that room would be alive today if certain things had happened.
True.
If that cube was not just a place that was boxed up by wood, if there were fire extinguishers, and if there were windows, that it would have been easier, or those girls would not be dead. That is what she said. She was in the dorm.
True.
And this is coming from a student who you would imagine doesn't have, the where-to-fors about the structure and all of that. But it was clear in her mind.
Very clear.
So you also say that it was preventable.
These are preventable deaths.
So it makes it a little bit more painful that we shouldn't be mourning in this manner, that there's something could have been done.
Yeah.
And I'm going to elongate this just a little bit more, bear with me. That between 1994 and 2016, there have been 5 committees that have been established to find out the reason behind school unrest in the second term.
Yeah.
Every one of these committees, the results mirroring the others, have said some fundamental things. It should be of interest for us to note that none of the recommendations for action from these committees have been established in the country. Does that worry you a little bit?
It is a worry, and as from where you had started, just know that these children are also human beings with God-given instinct and knowledge and understanding on how things should be done. And it is always the nature of a person, first, to defend self in terms of fighting back or fleeing. You know that.
Yes.
So when that girl spoke the way she did, it's something she could see. And so that then brings us down to these things are so basic that you don't even need to go to any manual to know what rightful things should be done. But I'm not saying because we do not have the instruments are there. Even if you had not taken time to go through the instruments of safety in schools, instinctively, there's a way in which one would respond to such situations. But let's go to where you started. And it was 1991, not 94.
91, actually, yes, you were correct.
91.
Yes.
91.
So because that is, you are talking about St. Kizito.
Yes.
And then all this, we've been losing lives each and every moment. And the moment the task forces were formed, including the Changuli one, is where a bishop was now put in charge and said, probably you guys are just looking at the technical aspects. Can we also bring somebody who would help us even look at the spiritual angle to some of these counseling issues and all? And then what happened, I think I've looked at the Bombolulu report, I've looked at the Shanguli report. I keep reminding somebody when you are doing this analysis that look at the recommendations here and the recommendations here. They are so similar. The differences we are seeing are the name in school. And the year.
And the number
And then the number of the casualties.
Yes.
And life goes on. And it took Kenya so long for us to have the school safety manual in 2018. But even after 2018, nothing changes. Documents in place, practice as we know it. No wonder it's to them the fallback position is tumezoea kufanya namna hii. And that's why when these girls are dying in rooms that should have been condemned before even being allowed or put in those places, then you must start asking the right question. Who should be accountable for all these missteps, for all these gaps? Because as of now, the codification of what should have been done, the protocols, the rules, the safety standards are there in documented form. That's what the codification I'm talking about. But who enforces this? It is the ministry that should be enforcing. The chief officer in charge is the cabinet secretary, Migos Ogamba. The first media briefing and after analysis and after we had sent a team down there, we said this guy should just go home and do other businesses. He's not interested, he's not invested, he's not keen on helping the school environment because these things, the pattern is repeating itself so similarly like what just happened under his watch 2 years ago at the Ndarasha school, Hillside Academy. And you're saying, when it happens like that, repeatedly the same pattern and nothing serious is even being done, you'll realize that these people are not keen on saving the situation. I'll give you examples here. And that structure was accommodating almost more than 100% of its capacity, so congestion. But that structure was also built after these safety standards had been gazetted, and yet they do not comply. They do not meet those standards. You find the grills, for example, on the windows, which should not be there. Those are specified within the safety standards and the protocols. That the doors that should be there at both ends and then in the middle, they should be at least 5 meters wide, but also opening out. None was in that state. In fact, one of them was locked from outside. You start wondering what's happening.
Yeah.
That those safety standards would require that the matron, in case of girls, and the patron, in case of the boys, was resident near there, because these are children. That was not happening there. That there should be smoke detectors, these fire extinguishers, all these gadgets which would help the young ones to know how to escape, and that these are students who should have now been more well drilled and socialized, just to know that in case of a fire, in case of anything, how do you escape?
Yeah.
We doubt whether those drills have been carried out, because if they had been, at least some better responses would have gone in there. So that begs the question then, is if we are still over-congesting these spaces, which are also poorly constructed against the safety standards, then what are we talking about? There's somebody sleeping here who does not know the right, the actual duty that they should be doing. And that takes me to sections 28 of the Basic Education Act. The responsibility to ensure that our children are in school. One, that they are safe when they are in school, whether day school or boarding. That's why I don't like those who are now trying to mix up things here. Whether day or boarding, that they are in school, that is a responsibility, number one. That when they are in school, they are safe. And number three, that when they are in school, they are being taught material of quality. So quality education. Those three parameters, those are the first fundamental responsibility of the cabinet secretary in charge of education, Migos Ogamba. Is he doing that?
Hold. Boaz, the Education Act explicitly mentions the CS education.
Yes. Section 28, that's what I'm saying. It is the only act which has even prescribed a job description for the CS. For the CS. These other acts I've not checked in detail, but the Basic Education Act, Section 28, gives the job description of the CS.
So what we are saying here is that if safety has not been guaranteed, if quality education has not been guaranteed,
if children are still out there,
are out and are not in
2.5 million
currently,
as per the 2025 statistics.
If they're out there and they're not in school,
then
what
is this guy doing?
Essentially the CS education has failed in his duty.
He's asleep.
So on those three parameters alone,
he should go home.
The CS should not be there.
We should not be having Ogamba as the CS. In fact, the honorable thing, I don't know why he's also still hanging in there, and he knows he's unable to do the job. Because I think there are many Kenyans who can do that job, but also he's appointing authority. He's also asleep. Maybe he's the one telling him, poor to makelele yote itaisha, or something like that. But we are losing lives. Let me take you to Endarasha.
Okay.
2 years ago, when this Utumishi incident happened, the parents of Endarasha who lost their children, 21 of them, they sent a message, because we are on the wall, the Kenya Human Rights Commission, Eli Mubora, we are supporting them on 3 cases. One is a constitutional petition, and then there's a civil case, because we demand that some justice should be done.
Yeah.
I know nothing can really compensate you over the loss of a child, but some justice should be done. As that was going on, then we realized that the government initiated an inquest to determine what really was the cause of the deaths there. And to date, that inquest has not been concluded. And as we are speaking now, first, let me be very clear on something. When the government initiated that inquest, it was on their own volition. They did not even consult the parents. It took the Kenya Human Rights Commission and the Limubora to search for these parents and ensure that they join that inquest process. And when they joined, as we are speaking, the government, through its agencies, are struggling to pull these parents one by one, promising certain negotiations outside there. And so this tells us specifically that there's actually no interest, and they're playing petty politics with serious matters where lives have been lost. And we have called this out, that it should not continue being in that manner. So I'm telling you that right now, those parents, some of the messages that phone I was just to open, you'll find they are horrified. Some are saying that the Utumishi incident is actually opening wounds that have refused to heal because they know that no investigation will really unearth the cause and assign responsibility on the people who really were derelict in executing their duties.
Boss,
yeah.
When you look at education in the country and how fundamental it is to the people of Kenya, one asks the question, if we look at the failures that do exist today, the Cabinet Secretary has not ensured that the students can access affordable, quality, secure education today.
Free and compulsory basic education.
You know, because here we are talking about education. Capitation has not gotten into these schools, you know. Every other time here we're making noise because capitation has not gotten into schools. Here we're talking about code in setting up these classes. That as well is not up to standard. Are we serious when it comes to education that we're giving to the children of the Republic? Because even the task forces that have been there since 1991, nothing has been done about it. Yet we see how repetitive these matters are. Is education in this country a factor that is being embedded into people's hearts as something that must be delivered to the children of the country?
Thank you, Dennis. Public education is on its own, because these people who are in charge of the public education have established private institutions. And indeed, many of their children and their grandchildren are elsewhere. They are not in this institution. That's why that callous manner with which they approach these issues, and that's why they do not care whatever happens. What you're saying is very true, because, Dennis, this is one country which is being studied by many other countries. In fact, benchmarking is done in Kenya a lot, particularly on the policy and legal instruments pertaining to education. This is one country which even the partners out there, including the Global Partnership for Education, are so happy to keep on giving money, grant, and even you're aware that through the World Bank, also some loans are being given to support education. Because for them, when Kenya talks reform, they know that certain things are going on because the instruments that is shared with them. When you share a constitution, that right from the outset tells you about the right to education, Article 43, that the Article 53, free and compulsory basic education, which is not codified in those other countries. Here we have. And then they start looking at, the Basic Education Act, similar principles embedded there. The Children's Act, similar principles, including the best interest of the child. And then they start looking at, then how do they operationalize these, including the guidelines, the ministerial regulations, the basic education regulations, which were gazetted shortly after the 2013 enactment of the law. What happens is that these documents are so good, but they're just paper. They just remain there. The practice is different. I'll give you then an example. You've seen within our constitution, we have codified how Teacher Service Commission should be the one that recruits teachers. They recruit teachers from a register of qualified teachers.
Yes.
What have you seen happening?
Politicians handing out.
One, the qualified teachers that they recruit, then they call them interns. The court tells them no, they still insist. That's contrary to that. You see MPs giving employment letters there. Whose responsibility is that? TSC. So, in other words, all that is good on paper, the practice is completely at variance. And this happens, by the way, I'll put it here, point blank, that it's the State House that orchestrates the TSC's maladministration and disorganization the way it does. It is the State House that takes the employment letters and now gives to the MPs that are aligned to them, so that now they buy political favor. It is the one that is disrupting institutional integrity of constitutional offices, constitutional commissions, and because of that, I think that's why nobody cares to do anything right. And maybe let me take you ahead. When these younger ones, I say they have some, some intellect within them, that intuition that helps them to recognize what is wrong and what is right. They also see these things.
They do.
When they see, that is how they learn. They have probably learned that in Kenya, if you go the right way, you not get it right. They've probably seen that, because they have seen in Kenya the meritocracy and the aspect of this one is somebody who is qualified and meets the credentials that requires to be appointed. They see that person is being overlooked.
Yeah.
I'll put a number of things in this bag. These children are in school, and back at home, they have siblings. Some graduates, no employment, but they know some who have no papers, but have already gotten jobs and have gone to River Road to get the fake things. They know that. So when they come and start wondering, they say, oh, this is how Kenya is. So they have also started to copy and to act in this particular manner. So for it to be gotten right, we don't just have to get the instruments right, but we also have to get the value system correctly. But even the value system, Ndu and Dennis, the value system, you go to our constitution and the Article 10, the national values and principles of governance. Everything that is stated there is so clear, but what is being done then is also outside.
So it sounds like a people problem.
It is a leadership problem, I think, and the people are just getting frustrated. And then if it is a leadership problem, it is a failure in leadership, failure to ensure that systems work, because if everybody knows that systems will work, nobody would try to avoid it. Dennis, in the year 2003, January, after Kibaki winning overwhelmingly in 2002 election, the Kenyans, the people were with the leadership, and they backed that leadership up. In fact, prior to that, it was a normal thing to find the police asking for bribes along the way. Yeah. But immediately after Kibaki was sworn in, people arrested these crude officers. And by the way, the officers who take bribes are not many. There are just a few elements along. People arrested them and said, never again will you do this. In other words, when the leadership sets the tone, people will follow. When you set the right tone, what happened? It is only after Anglo-leasing landed. And people said, oh, we are arresting and really torturing these junior officers here, and you people are planning to steal millions. The Anglo-leasing scandal, which where the big guns and people we thought really meant well for this country, where when you talk of them, integrity comes closer, accountability comes closer, transparency comes closer. That is when Ndugu John Githongo unveiled and told us the massive rot that was happening in there. And Kenyans say, whoa, back again to where we started from. So it is a leadership which must be fixed. And I think we have to be also very honest here. At times, Kenyans also give themselves such mediocre leaderships.
Okay.
They do, because let me tell you, I don't have to ask you which faith and all that. I'm Christian. Of course, based on that, so the Bible is very close to me. But if I get a pastor who has been brought to my church, and the first thing the pastor, I know, this is a pastor who said, Biblia ni bure kabisa, don't trust it at all. The first thing is that I will not listen to what that pastor says. But in Kenya here is where the person who actually led in trashing the constitution, you say, no, you are good enough. You can also lead this country. And not just that, we are giving you the oath that you will uphold, defend, protect, fulfill this constitution. Who is fooling the other one here? It is you who are giving people responsibilities that they cannot shoulder. And when now it starts cracking, then you wonder what really happened. I think Kenyans should also be taking responsibility on some of this, but having given them a mandate, they must also pile pressure
and here
for
we
these
are.
guys to act appropriately.
So school unrest is an issue, and these committees had to deal with the issue of school unrest over the last 30 years. And that it was an issue 30 years ago. Changoli boys, we looking at, so many things that happened over time. And here we are again in 2026 dealing with the same issue, where now girls have been taken to court. They are being held for the next 21 days at the children's center, whatever this is called.
They are now being remanded.
They're being remanded
place.
now,
Yes.
right, in Naivasha. But the question is that there's investigations that are being done. Whilst that is happening, 12 schools officially have been reported to have closed because there was some kerfuffle overnight.
Unrest,
and they wake up in the morning and school administrations have said, we don't want this situation to happen, so how about everybody go home until things die down? But I have a problem with that because we're still not addressing the issue. I gave an example. We can be angry at one another, and then we can decide to walk away, and then we can say, well, let the anger cool, and then we come back. But we've not dealt with the issue. We haven't dealt with the issue. Children may come back to school after a week, 2 weeks, whatever. You might decide, okay, let's come back and do midterms. But have we dealt with the issues?
Not.
School unrest now is what we are talking about. Yes. School unrest led to 16 girls dying. School unrest led to a number of things happening. The inquest still goes on for the Ndarasha fire, so we don't know the cause of that. Yes. But school unrest has been a problem. What is the problem? And how do we deal with it? These schools that are closing today, national schools, sub-county schools, extra-county schools, they're all closing today.
Let me tell you, the only button these people are pressing within the safety standards and protocols is that of closing the school to avert a strike.
Yes.
Because that is also part of the safety standards. But that should be coming as a last resort. And even when that is happening, that's why you'll find the director, the county level, getting involved, consulted before such actions are done. Because if, as a teacher, you had that information and you knew that such a thing is likely to happen, and these are children, you don't know what has really triggered it, it's gone beyond what you can control, then it is allowed within those safety standards to invoke that. How come that is the only one that they know? It is like a pilot of a plane that only remembers even a small thing is already ejected himself and left everything. Yeah. That is not a good pilot. So back to where that question comes. Because when the Utumishi Academy, Utumishi Girls High School situation happened, of course, these children, let me tell you, they've had this information. Even those in boarding schools, they've had. This is information now in the public knowledge. And indeed, maybe many of them have also been going through a lot of stressful moments as we speak. I've told you, I think I've mentioned the cases of congestion in the halls of residence. You can even think of meals and issues. Actually, there are some parents. We speak a lot with parents. There's some parents whose children are at home, and they said the reason why they were disquiet, there was a lot of disquiet in their school and unhappiness, is these people raised school fees. And the justification they were making, they were making justification that for them to afford good food, because the food rations was low and even the quality was poor.
Okay.
So the administration and the BOM, they consulted and said, okay, it will be, your parents have to cough a little bit more. So when they received this money, they said the ratio remained the same, but even quality became poorer. These are young ones. They are observing this.
Yeah.
So then they start asking themselves, so why was even the raise in the school fees? So these are some of the things. Whatever we do, we think we are the adults who are responsible and all. These young ones are listening, they are watching. And also, these people are also listening and watching how our political leadership is misbehaving. Using terminologies and calling one another all kinds of disrespectful. What makes you think that these young ones in school cannot attempt such, and they even become disrespectful to
it's
their
a little bit
order?
more. It's a lot more than disrespectful, Boaz, because we saw if the CCTV footage is anything to go by, there was a deliberate attempt to take life. Look at what we saw, because I can understand if the quality of food is poor, but that's why we're saying we're dealing with layers of issues here, because these girls, like you say, they knew that there was no escape. There was no escape for these girls where they lit this fire.
The information that is there, I think first the CCTV thing, we've been in contestation on that. Because, digital surveillance has got also its rules and protocols. Among those include the fact that you cannot install them in the bedrooms and dormitories, particularly those for the girls and boys, those are their bedrooms. Two, that you can also not install them in the bathrooms and in the toilets. And so I suspect, this is my personal view, not even the Limubora, not even Kenya Human Rights Commission, because I know those within the consultation we've agreed on have bought that CCTV trash. I call it, this is similar to Endarasha, where they'll be taking you through a tunnel, and then finally they tell you they're unable to establish what caused this. And then when now you are taking legal action, then they say, now let us initiate an inquest to help us unravel what really happened.
This you think people are being taken on a wild goose chase here?
I think so. I've said so. And you've realized that I've taken that as now my personal position, because I know there are people who still think that those guys are doing serious investigation. My understanding is that whenever these things happen, what the government does, and they are very creative in doing it, is basically to try and see how can we deflect the rage and the anger of the public, deflect it from us and direct it somewhere else. They do that so that they buy time. By the time these things will unravel and you realize, oh, nothing has really happened. If this government was serious, we would be having people in jail concerning the Endarasha Hillside Academy thing. That is where serious top-level investigators went there with forensic investigate. Then they come and tell you, we are unable. What kind of rubbish is that? So when I saw, for me, that footage, the first thing I said, these guys are being very critical. No, let me tell you, I think we have to be very honest here.
Let's do it.
What do we, when you install CCTV, it means you have a higher level of surveillance in an institution. And the back end is always where, in the monitor room, you can imagine this watchman, male or even female, watching how our girls, the nakedness of our girls in their bedroom and when they are going to the bathroom and all. I don't think that is happening. These are made up. That is my personal opinion. And I think for as long as this government keeps on taking us on wild goose chase, they can cook up things. This is the country, that those investigators, at one point they told us there's a minister who actually took himself to a forest, shot himself, and after shooting himself, struck a matchbox, actually poured fuel on himself, struck a matchbox, and burnt himself. These are same investigation system that we have, because they have also not been put to account. So they can concoct, they can create, they can bring up anything. And this trash called CCTV in our girls' bedroom, away with it. That is not how you deal with the matters. But even if those girls are still suspects. I don't condemn those girls. And these are children. I doubt whether there's a single child who leaves their home that I'm going to kill others. It doesn't happen. Even if that happened and they initiated a fire process within the dormitory, the safety and standard protocols would have allowed us to nip that fire in the bud and save the situation. Where were the matrons? How come the doors could not open? How come the grills were there? They could jump out. You would get serious burns, yes, but they'll be out. So whatever happens, whether it is an emergency caused by external intrusion of something from external forces or internal, the standards allow for a process that would ensure that these children remain safe.
Our education system for a very long time has been the kind of students are there to be seen, not to be heard. Where am I going with this? There's an example that Ndu gave the other day. In our homes with our children, we do not feed them food with weevils. That when they go to school and they see food with weevils is abnormal.
It is.
And they will want to raise that up. But in an institution where you're only there to be seen or heard, that would be a bone of contention.
Yes.
We talk about corporal punishment that still exists, though it's illegal. It does exist in our schools today. We talk about capitation that has not gone into school, food rations has gone down, and we see the trouble that children as well are struggling even with books.
Yeah.
Books, yet
Yes,
exams are
text.
being set. How are these things contributing to the problems that we are seeing today? And does that then take the blame squarely to the door of the duty bearers, those who have been given the mandate to look after education and ensure that our children are safe, that our children get quality education, and that nothing is left to chance?
I think you've scoped it very well. And in fact, we cannot run away from the aspect of investment in the schools through capitation and other sources. And indeed, the delays that we are seeing, and even when those resources are land, they land, the small bits, in small bits. The ministry is the one that will sit with teachers and tell them how we'll use the 50-30-20 formula. That's 50%, 30%, 50% in term 1, 30% in term 2, 20% in term 3. And that this money will ensure it arrives before the schools open for each term so that you use them. Those ones are words uttered and the circulars issued. When that happens, you'll find that monies are being... The earliest that funds were released like this year, before the term 1 opened.
Yes.
They released when the previous year had lots of deficits.
Yeah.
And indeed, there were pending bills. So even these administrators start wondering, how do we deal with the pending bills? But the ministry tells you, no. What we are giving you is for term 1. So you see where the administrators also have a problem. And this is information that also reaches the students. So they start also wondering. So the school planning system is also not effective because of those kind of inconsistencies from the side of the government who should be remitting this. But also in terms of the dialogue and consultation within the school system. Do you know that the Basic Education Act and the Children's Act actually gave voice to the children? And the children are the primary stakeholders in a school. So it gave voice to the children, but of course the parents would have always had a say in school. The teachers have always had a say. And then the team or the representative of the CS in school, which is the BOM, Board of Management, has a bigger say always in school. But you'll find that in a number of times, I think because the student's voice should be harnessed through the legitimately, could we say elected? Because some schools, they're supposed to be actually electing their presidents or their officials. But then you'll find that a little bit more of manipulation takes place in that case. And if the students themselves do not respect the channel through which their voices are taken up, then they'll resist. I mean, I don't know whether to mention, you saw the interview of the Lenana student who said to Lingoja mpaka the prefects had gone for their trip to Kapanga. It's because they did not trust the leadership of the students that is there, because they feel those are people who have been appointed by the admin and they are only parroting what the administration wants. So you require to create that kind of a space where these learners can genuinely see that their voices matter, the issues they raise. They could be raising them without some experience or a practical orientation to solutions that they are looking for. That is where then you explain to them and they get to understand that in as much as you'd have wished that from day one to day last, chicken kila siku, that from day first to day last, that tea with a lot of milk, with bread, buttered, jam and everything, that this one is not practical within this, even back at home, in as much as you could be coming from a family that probably may afford that, this one is also not consistent. Such negotiations, discussions, and consensus with students really would help a lot more. But also, it is not just on the welfare and welfare alone where this failure is. Even on the academics. As we speak now, I think there's a time we had here a situation where teachers were giving us feedback, teachers in teaching grade 10, that you see now the learners who have come, we've realized that they have really not gotten the knowledge they should have gotten in junior school. We are trying to bring them up to that level so that we start the grade 10 subject. That means a lot of pressure on these learners. That pressure, because you are trying to help them go to the basics so that now they start the program of the grade 10. Then they start wondering, so what were we doing there? Why did we spend all the 3 years without being taught the right material, being brought to the level that is required? So all these things are factors that cause the kind of disquiet. And
sorry, Boris, but do we also see that it is very possible that there are children in school who actually, for whatever reason, would actually want to cause harm to another student, and that we are not looking at that issue? The truth of the matter is that somebody sets these fires. You told us a few minutes ago that children in school are intelligent. There is an application of intellect.
Yes.
So you also know that if you strike a match to a mattress where there is no outlet, it will burn, and that people will be injured and that they will die. You know this. So when you're doing this, because this fire was set inside.
It was set inside, and
the people who slept inside there were these children. So is there not an element here where we also must pay attention to that there's nobody in this cog who goes free here? Whether we talk about pressure, teachers, whether we talk about capitation not coming, whether we talk about the students themselves and whatever behavior, parents also play a role here, because we're going to ask ourselves, what's happening? Whether they're in school, we know school, teachers in locus parenti, but that at some point these children will go home.
What you're saying is actually right, but I still go to my default position that I doubt whether there's a student who leaves home that I'm going to kill others. But
it may not be your intent when you leave the house, but there could be something that could be cultivated in you that you decide to strike that match while in school, Boaz.
It's true. I'll come to that. Because Kuppet as a delegation also went down. And one thing which was new, which Kuppet came up with, the leadership of Kuppet through the chairman, Mboko Milemba, he said they reached out and discussed, they found these teachers there. And one thing that they realized is that there's a student who somehow had been chased from another school. You know, you can't expel a student nowadays. You can only suspend them or change centers for where they are going to study. That they realize that one of the students whom there is now being seen as a ringleader had actually been sent from that school and with the recommendation that should not be allowed to be in a boarding school because had such tendencies. And yet that is a student that the ministry should have been monitoring this, should have ensured then that that is nipped in the bud. But do where you're saying, a mattress, even if you have how many mattresses put in here, and you start that fire, people are asleep. Instinctively, I started by saying the human reaction and response is to escape, to defend themselves and that. For it to reach a level where we are losing the 16 within this area, it means it has become worse. It means everything around here is not conducive even for escape. And so even those who are coming to put out the fire cannot access that. These are you could be having 2 or 3 bad eggs. By the way, they are not
That's
many.
all you need.
They are not many. They are not many. And that's why the systems where they operate, they'll be able to identify and isolate those bad eggs. And they'll be able to neutralize that. But also a response mechanism that can quickly come and rescue. Because ordinarily, the fire began, let's use the Utumishi case. The fire began at midnight. It's only at 3:30 a.m. 3.5 hours later is when the first response coming from outside. Here, Utumishi, which is a police, public police institution, so to say, is surrounded by the military bases there, the kind of surveillance that is done around there. How negligent can the society and those agencies also be that you are not able to respond in time? And when a fire begins at night, it must be visible a little bit more. So somehow, we should also not be thrown to a case where we are blaming everybody. I think we start with who is a primary responsible person to ensure that standards in the school are kept, and who should be monitoring to ensure that you do not deviate from that position, so that the school administration, through the BOM, through the committee of safety, which is within the school, which continuously also appraises and updates these young ones on what is happening, and new techniques, if any, fire drills where the assembly points, such things, so that it is always in their mind. The same way we pray before a meal, that this thing is always in their mind. Before you do this, I'm alert. In case of this, there's alert that they see sensors, that they can see buttons where they can press for alarm, that those things are in place. That in case they know it is going to be difficult, you can break the window. We've traveled. Many Kenyans have traveled. When you're shown that, okay, this is an emergency door and you can break it and go out, that's a part of the safety. So in these schools where these are requirements, which none of them has been installed, and then you start now starting to look for where the culprits are, I think we should start with the primary culprits and responsibility holders